All right, y'all, we're on video 7. If you made it this far, I'm proud of you and I love you. So yeah, this is why we need to stop calling ourselves black, or we're agreeing to being slaves, and why anybody who considers themselves white is agreeing to be racist. If you want more detail about that, go back to my other videos where I talk about where race was created and why. It was only created for slavery. That was all. That's the only reason race exists. Now, I do know that for black people, it might be a little hard to disconnect from the word because it is a culture, right? We have black power movements, black pride. We have so much. There's so much that word connects with us historically. So I know it's not going to be easy to let go, but I say we do it like we did nigga, right? Take it and make it mean something else. As long as we're not saying it's our identity. We don't go around saying that like that's what we are. We can say black is the culture. Black is who we are as a culture. Identity-wise, we are no longer clinging to race because we about to let that shit go. So black is the culture. Black is not the identity. Let's continue. All right, everything before this was about before the Civil War. I'm gonna get into after the Civil War. So I just talked about the Red Summer on the last videos, and that's very important to what I'm about to get into because it shows why they switched up their strategy, but it's all gonna look the exact same, I'm telling you, since 1492 when we came across these motherfuckers. They've been doing the same exact thing. We have been in war for 500 years. They just switching it up so that we stop fighting back. They don't want us to know that this is our home because people don't fight for things that don't belong to them, right? If we felt like this was home, they know we do what we always do, which is cut the fuck up. They was not winning physically. They start fighting legally. Let's get into it. Now, these massacres are not a part of the Red Summer, but they are a part of the Red Summer, if you get what I'm saying. Because what they do is they plan ahead. So this stuff was all planned out prior to all of this, prior to the World War I even. This was all a plan. That's why they did the Great Migration and everything. This was all a plan. So when they came together at this point in the Red Summer and they started getting asses whooped, they need another approach. That's the only reason that there's like a year or so break in between these, because they know they had to switch it up. But yeah, let me get it. So the Ocoee, Florida massacre of 1920. Ocoee, Florida, 1920. This was political, just like all the other ones, right? So this started with a man, I'm just going to call him Norman, which is his last name. And then the other guy is Julius Perry, but I'm just going to call him July because that's what he went by. So Norman and July were very thriving, wealthy black men in a thriving, wealthy black town. They advocated for black people in their voting, and on the election day, they went up to try to vote, and they were turned down 3 times. I believe this is when Norman went back with some legal proof and some legal documents to be like, yeah, you can't do this, blah. That's why they hated educated black brother. So he went back knowing what he was talking about, and shit got hectic. From there, I believe that somebody ended up getting shot, and he ran to July's house, and that's where they got surrounded by like 500 white supremacists, white Democrats, white supremacists who, yeah, ended up, this is where it gets down. So a shootout goes down, back and forth between the 2 in the house and the 500 around it. They end up killing 2 white men, which only angered them more. And then, I told you the numbers, y'all. We be whooping their ass. It only be a little bit of us. But yeah, they did end up, I believe, burning the house down, which I think led to Norman getting lynched. I'm not sure if he died in the fire or if he got lynched, but I do know that Perry, July ended up going to jail, where they then hung him from a pole and lynched him. Now keep in mind, when they be saying lynch, they be sodomizing these men. They be doing a whole lot more than just hanging them by a pole. They often have sex with them, assault them sexually, cut off their private parts, and do a whole lot of other things. I hate how they downplay what they do, because that's white history, and we need to talk about it and start sugarcoating it straight up. So they violate it, brutalize, and do what they do best, which is act like animals. So they ended up burning down over 20 homes, a Masonic lodge, and a couple of churches, as well as other businesses that was in that community. They wreaked havoc, do what they do, and they call it a riot, but it's straight up just a massacre. The black people who owned what they had, farms and all this wealthy stuff, had to flee, and then the white people took over. Okay, now this is where sundown towns come in. Are you keeping up? So again, sundown towns are not about race. It's not just, oh, we don't want y'all in our neighborhood. It is fear and a war strategy. So this is to make sure that nobody that is black comes in that town, because it might be somebody who actually owns the land. So when you see a sundown town, it's not just some angry racist, we don't like your kind. They're actually scared that you might be the descendant of an indigenous person whose land they took. So I'm telling y'all, it's not really about race. They only use race to keep us behind. All right, now fast forward, let's get to the Tulsa Massacre of 1921. Now this one is so hard for me to talk about only because of the different angles in which this was way deeper than some white girl claiming that somebody did something to them. Again, they use race to keep us behind. There's always a lie that a white girl said somebody touched her. There's always a lie that a black person did something whatsoever. These are just to make us think that we're not in a war with the government. They want us to think it's a war with the whites. Now, if you remember where the race came into play, it was always to keep the lower class white people and black people of any class beefing with each other. That's why they always try to make us still think it's this race thing when it's really like these puppet masters pulling the string. It don't even be no girl saying nothing. It just be time to attack because they're coming for our land. So, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Now, this one is very interesting to me because we all know that after the Trail of Tears, the 5 civilized tribes were mostly pushed up to where? Oklahoma, where we then ended up thriving and showing that we are descendants of the 5 civilized tribes. But argue with your mama, don't argue with me. Now, at the time, Tulsa was considered the oil capital of America. So this was deeper than just, oh, y'all black and wealthy. It's the capital, the oil capital of America, in which was being dominated by who? The Seminole descendants. Okay, coincidence, I guess. So Tulsa gets deep because they killed about 300 people, and they destroyed about 1,200 homes and businesses and churches. I believe it was a Masonic lodge there as well, but don't quote me on that one. But it gets really interesting in the end. So there are about 10,000 displaced black people after this event. Thousands of them were held. They issued a martial law and held thousands of them hostage in camps in which they were not able to go free unless they proved, unless they showed their green card. Yes, green card. Because after slavery, they made it illegal for black people to not have a job. Ain't that interesting? So after slavery, that you had to issue your green card as a proof of work, of being employed. If they didn't have that, or a white person to vouch for them, they were forced to clean up the mess that was left behind. That's so traumatic, I could not even imagine. So they forced them to clean up the mess, and they did not arrest anybody for this. Mind you, the government dropped bombs on this place as well. They say it wasn't because it was unmarked planes, but we know because they had tanks and military running through the fucking town. But again, they're going to label it as a riot because this is what stops people from being able to get the insurance policies and everything, because they're like, well, if you never would have touched that white girl, would have never initiated a riot, and this was an agreed upon battle versus an attack or a massacre. So you see why words matter, and we got to stop just letting them call things certain things and get away with just calling us whatever they want, because it's a war tactic, y'all. It's fucking war. I don't know how many times I got to say this, but y'all to understand that this is all strategies of a war. So again, yeah, a lot of people were displaced. Like I said, about 10,000 people were displaced, forced into cleaning up the neighborhood, and then not even allowed to get anything from it. They got no payouts. I think they ended up in, like, not too long ago, paying off the descendants and things like that. But there was a woman, one of the last living people of Tulsa, she just got denied again, which that's the type of shit we should be coming together to fight for. That lady and her family deserves rights to that land, period. Like, we be worried about the wrong shit, y'all. They are not inherently rich and wealthy. They stole our shit and made it look like we don't ever leave nothing down to our kids but Jordans. It's not true. They stole everything from us and then make us look lazy. All right, now fast forward to the Rosewood, Florida massacre of 1923. This is a tricky one because it's long as well. So Rosewood was at first, I believe, a white and black community, but after the mills had went down, the white people ended up moving to Summer, but the black people somehow in the 1840s after slavery were able to buy up all of the land. It was I think two rich brothers who were inherently rich, right, in the 1840s. They inherited a bunch of money and was able to buy up the land also from the work that they did in the mills. So once they bought up all of the land, they thrived. They owned homes, two-story homes, pianos, all this shit that was pissing off the white people in Summer, who were only surviving off the wealth of one white man. But hold on, I think I'm gonna do a 7.5 and I'm gonna land my plane, y'all. I swear that's gonna be the last one. I'm gonna start off with Rosewood. Just bear with me.